Oh, hi! You caught me nibbling on a piece of a homemade bread. It is so yummy. Do you like homemade bread? Today, Teacher Apple will be showing us how to bake a bread.
Good morning and happy Sabbath, children. I hope you are healthy and well.
So, Teacher Apple, what ingredients do we need in baking bread?
You know, when I bake bread, there are only a few ingredients in the recipe: water, oil, salt, sugar, milk, and the two most important ingredients, flour and yeast.
How much flour and yeast do we need to use?
Well, I would use about this much amount of flour, and for all that flour, I would only use about this much yeast. That is not much yeast, is it? But the yeast is the most important ingredient because it is what makes the flour and all the other ingredients rise. It makes the bread light and airy. When making bread, this little bit of yeast slowly but surely grows and grows and mixes all through the flour and the rest of the ingredients. It permeates or blends all through the flour. These are the things that we will need: a mixing bowl, baking tray, hand mixer, measuring spoon and cups, whisk, spatula, rolling pin, and a brush. Here are the ingredients we need: 4 teaspoon active dry yeast, 1 1/4 cup warm water, 1 cup of almond milk or any non-dairy milk, 2 tablespoons of oil, 2 tablespoons of sugar, 1 tablespoon of salt, 3 to 4 cups of flour. For the procedure, mix the yeast and sugar with 1/4 cup of warm water and set aside for 5 minutes until it froths, indicating yeast is active. To the yeast and water mixture, add the remaining cup of water, milk, oil, and salt. Add 1 cup of flour at a time and mix the mixture for 5 minutes. Mix in a stand mixer on low speed or by hand until a dough forms. If it's sticky, continue adding more flour. Continue kneading for another 10 minutes. Form a smooth ball with the dough and place in an oiled bowl, turning over once to cover the top with oil. Cover and let it rise in a warm place for 1 to 1/2 hours until doubled in volume. Grease loaf pan and place loaf into a pan. Cover the dough loosely and set aside to rise for about 1 hour until the dough rises. Preheat the oven for 400 degrees. Bake the loaves for 35 minutes. Cool on a rack for about 10 minutes. Then remove the loaves from the pan and continue cooling before you slice.
Do you know that there is also a story that Jesus told in the Bible about a woman making bread? It's found in the book of Matthew, chapter 13, verse 33, and it says, "The kingdom of heaven is like the yeast a woman used in making bread. Even though she put only a little yeast in 3 measures of flour, it permeated every part of the dough." So, why did Jesus tell the story and say that the kingdom of heaven is like the yeast used in baking bread? Well, he wanted us to know how his love, how heaven's love works. When Jesus was on this earth, he had 12 helpers, the 12 disciples. They were very close to Jesus and helped him in his work of sharing the love of God with people. They were like this small amount of yeast, sharing the love of Jesus with a big, big world. After Jesus went back to heaven, these disciples and many more believers kept working and sharing God's love. Each day, more and more people learned of Jesus' love for them. It was like the yeast growing and spreading God's love with the world. Today, there are many Christians around the world, and Jesus tells us that before He comes back again, the whole world will have heard of Him and His love. Well, isn't that wonderful that Jesus loves us so much? I want to share the love of Jesus with the people around me too. So today, if you meet someone that doesn't know about Jesus, remember the story that Jesus told about the yeast and the flour. So children, what is our memory verse for this morning again?
It's found in the book of Matthew 13 verse 33.
The kingdom of heaven is like the yeast a woman used in making bread. Even though she put only a little yeast in 3 measures of flour, it permeated every part of the dough. Thank you for listening, kids. Have a nice day.